Welcome to RE Uncut. Our daily shows are supported by Printforce, Shore Agents, Rock End and CoreLogic.
In times of a crisis, leaders emerge. That's what those around them look for, leadership. There are great examples of leadership in this current crisis and examples of people who are not great leaders. They stick out like the proverbial. This week's guest, Cameron Schwab, will lay out 4 questions every leader can ask themselves to help them get through any crisis. He shares that with Dean Yeo in the final part of his series with us, and he does that today in just a moment.
Standing out affordably in a cluttered media landscape is difficult, but now there is a way using social media, buyer targeting and an engaged audience looking and thirsty for property information. The Property Show is an exclusive offering from realty.com.au that can profile and promote your listing to hundreds of thousands of eager and targeted property buyers and sellers. You'll be surprised at the low cost and enormous benefit of combining new media, social media and audience targeting. So get started by following the link on the homepage at Real Estate Uncut.
Hi everyone, it's Dean and I've got Cameron with me. Now, welcome back again, Cameron. Last day, finish line is just up ahead.
Cool.
Or goalposts, if we should put it up.
Yeah, no, we got it. Hopefully we got it. It's the old, I know that that's the one, you've got it.
That's the one. Yeah. Now, this one is certainly a time as far as leading in crisis, and you said it energizes you. What do you mean by that?
I think it does. I think it's probably one of the times as a leader and as a CEO, sometimes you feel too distant from what's actually happening, and if you're doing your job, and that's actually almost a bit of a natural way in lots of ways, but all of a sudden you're faced with something which requires you to be a leader, and there's no ambiguity about it in any shape or form. And I found that was a really energizing thing, that it's exhausting but energizing, if you know what I mean. It's that lovely. It's like going for a hard, strong run or ride when you're actually fit. It's, if you go for a run and you're unfit, it's a terrible experience. But when the crisis can often bring out the best in you. And I had the same conversation with Richard Goyder about this, who ran Wesfarmers. He was saying that he actually found it to be an energizing situation. The danger and the difficulty often was when the crisis finished, you still had to get on with the job. And that could actually, at the end of all of that, I found that sometimes a little bit challenging, that the day-to-day almost felt mundane by comparison, if you like. And so they had to be very aware at that stage to say, okay, what's next? So I often actually come up, even in terms of a crisis perspective, I'd say, okay, what's happened? As in, what have we learned? What do we know now? And what have we learned from it? What do we need to do now? And then what do we need to do next? They're really simple questions. What happened? What now? What next? Because you won't be able to do all the things you thought you were going to be able to do. So the what next might have to be parked off at some stage to the future, but you're going to have to get onto it at some point. But as long as we know we're doing it consciously. And it's interesting, even at this time now, where we're starting to think about what next within the pandemic, and it requires something different from us than what it required from us 2 months ago. But if we're still operating in the same way as we did 2 months ago, we're not taking in full account the fact that people's lives have changed over the last 2 months. They might want to work the way that they're currently working. But they might also not realise that they're missing part of the camaraderie and the collectiveness, that we've actually taken for granted. That it's almost felt like a bit of a break from that. But really, in lots of ways, we want that. But some people won't. Some people will really miss the fact that they're not home all day with their kids, whereas other people can't get in the office quick enough. It's just different, it's different mentalities. And so I found that the crisis process to be quite energizing. Unfortunately, I found myself in too many at different times, and then sometimes they were of my making. So I also understand that, that it's, you have to be, you can only afford so many crises when you're a CEO, I can assure you.
And I think that it's interesting on that last point. I asked my son, who goes back to school shortly in 2 weeks' time, and he said, "Oh, it's been a bit like Christmas, Dad. It's just been this longer break." Now he's worked from home and that seemed, but he still felt like it's a break. So it's exactly what you're saying there, as far as some look forward to it, some can't wait to get back to it. Very interesting. And I think, look, you got to take it on as it is. You can't change that and move forward. So if it energizes you, fantastic.
It does, and I think a lot of leaders would have found that, but now they'd just be settling down, and it could have the other effect that the lack of energy, if you like, they might have just dipped over, and they might find themselves in a situation where they have to actually work out. And again, it comes back, and I've spoken to you about these, but there's 4 other questions I'd just love to finish with. And the first one is, okay, what does winning look like now? What does success look like? Whether that's a personal one, whether that's an organisation one, even in the context of the team that you're operating in. Okay, what do we need to be good at to achieve that? So what's the ambition now? What's the capability? Then we have to ask ourselves, what are we actually going to do here? What is the next thing that we need to actually do? And what are we not going to do? What won't we have time to be able to do in all of this? And the last one is, how will you know? How will we know? As in, how are we going to measure it? And question 1 and question 4 need to be very aligned, like ambition and measurement need to be very aligned. And so just even that little reflection, as the world sits now, what does success or winning look like? Just on ambition. And now what do we need to be good at to achieve that success, matching ambition and capability? And I think that those 4 questions will always serve you well.
That is just awesome. Thank you so much for the whole week. Thanks, Cameron.
Thanks. Good on you, Dean. All the best.
Well, that's it for this week. Before we leave you today, I just want to say a big thanks to Dean Yeo for his hosting this week. Well done, mate. You've done very, very well. Also, thanks to Cameron Schwab. If Cameron has raised anything this week that you'd like to follow up with him on, please use any one of the links that we've had on all of the shows this week to contact him. I trust you've enjoyed the shows this week. We'll be back next week with a new guest on Monday. Have a great weekend. I'll see you then.
The daily RE Uncut shows are supported by Printforce, Shore Agents, Rock End and CoreLogic. RE Uncut is one of the anchor shows at retplus.com, the home of property.